Okay. Does everyone who has anorexia have body dysmorphia?
You want me to go first?
I can
this?
go first. So there's two different sets of criteria for the two diagnoses. So you may have one and not the other, but there is a lot of overlap between the two. So I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
I agree. I think a lot of times people think they're very similar because some of the core factors that both of them deal with are similar, but there are definitely differences between the two as well.
Is there a reason behind why anorexia is most present in girls?
I think there may be some society reasons for that, and just, as a society, I think we value thinness, and so that may impact that, especially in females. And then I think there's some research to suggest there's kind of some neurobiological reasons as well that may contribute to that in females.
And I also think those students or individuals that report it to, I think there might be some skewed data as far as not as many males have come forward and been diagnosed in that, because I think there is it's still affecting males as well.
Mm-hmm. What do you notice about girls and boys that struggle with anorexia?
So what we would notice would be sometimes they wear baggy clothes, they might avoid social situations. Not always is it a weight loss, like a drastic weight loss is going to be a telltale sign. So that's where you would look at other things. I don't know what else. They might be avoiding school, social situations. Their grades might be impacted. Attendance would be impacted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it might be especially tricky around lunchtime, so that might be a time that they might be more likely to seek out support or kind of avoid the cafeteria. That might be another thing we might notice here at school.
As far as like comments they would say, I think they would probably talk about being focused on how many calories are in things. They might really be watching what they're eating. They might be excessively working out after they eat X amount of food.
And then, I've definitely seen this kind of preoccupation with control and needing to control situations. Yeah. That's kind of a big piece of it too.
How have you seen this show up in their grades and their schoolwork in that way?
Good question. So I think it kind of depends on where they are with recognizing that this is a challenge of theirs and if they're in treatment and that type of thing. But students suffering from anorexia tend to also at some point, there's a lack of energy, they're tired, attendance is impacted, or they're avoiding school for whatever reason. So grades are going to be naturally impacted just not being here. And then I think lack of focus and that type of thing is going to impact them as well. Then they're losing what's happening in the classroom, which is going to ultimately affect their grades.
Yeah.
Does everyone who has anorexia have body dysmorphia?
No, not at all. So some people have anorexia because genetically it's the way their mind is wired. They know they're skinny. They see themselves as thin, frail, underweight. They see the issues going on with them in their body. But it's not a matter of they know what's happening, so it's not just something that you're saying. But they honestly just don't want to eat, even though that they see themselves as too skinny. They know that they're too skinny. So
Okay.
It's not like that for everybody, no.
Got it. And what do you notice about girls and boys that struggle with anorexia, and how have you seen this issue in school?
We see all diagnoses here at school. I mean, I could list the gamut of things to you things you probably don't even heard of. We have lupus nephritis, we could have Guillain-Barré, we could have anorexia, we could have bulimia. So we'll see any diagnosis and any gamut of diagnosis here in school. We have 2,000 students, so you can see a diagnosis any day of the week that you might not have heard of. As far as the way I see young men and young women, typically you see girls or over boys, but it's not that it can't happen in both. It does happen in both. They often say it's triggered by, your anxiety, sometimes depression. It's your control factor. Sometimes it's genetic, and sometimes it's neither one of those things. So when I see somebody or I'm assessing it, the first thing when I see students, people in general, it's just a nursing habit that you kind of assess a person by looking at their hair, their skin, their nails, their teeth. So if I see somebody who looks underweight, the next thing I'm looking at is their hair thin? Do they have a layer of dirt on their body that they're trying to grow? Are they typically cold? Are they, do their teeth look a different color? I can look at their knuckles, I can look at their hands. So there's lots of students that are trying to induce vomiting, and they will try to help us, and you'll see that actually showing on their hands, which is there. So in an assessment from a medical perspective, I can look you over in about a minute and see if your hair is thinning, if it's brittle, that's what your teeth look like. And then I would go on to vital signs. I can see a lot of things from vital signs. So a person who's anorexic or looking underweight, their vital signs will be different than another person's would be. They can have a different heart rate, a different blood pressure. And then that habit changes with when you sit and when you stand. So basically a person without starving their body, their blood pressure shifts in a normal shift when you stand, you get up. And a person who's been starving themselves in their bodies, it goes into conservation mode really quickly. So you're trying to conserve all the energy you can, all the food and nutrients you can. So if they're sitting on a bed and they get up, quickly their blood pressure drops differently and their heart rate drops differently than others. It doesn't in 1 minute, 5 minutes. So there's a lot of things we can study and test and do. So if you're asking me from a medical perspective, I can look at those things and analyze them. That's how I see students.
Thank you.
Anorexia affects Leah in her everyday life, such as when she's driving, at school, and even at home. The first question, which is, does everyone who has anorexia have body dysmorphia, relates to Leah because these are both struggles found in her everyday life, as Mrs. Masters pointed out.
The first question that Ella and I asked was, does everyone who have anorexia have body dysmorphia? And Mrs. Masters, Mrs. Ewing did a really good job of explaining it. But basically, in the book, relating it back to Leah, there are many times where she called herself fat, and she's like, I am so fat, I'm a fat pig, I don't deserve to eat because I need to be skinny. And so Ella and I talked about how she kind of had anorexia but also had body dysmorphia because she wanted to be skinny so bad, and she thought that the only way of doing that was starving herself. So we thought that kind of showed a crossover between the two. And there are many points in the book where she counts her calories and is like, do not eat, do not eat. From page 185 to 187, all it says is must not eat. And that's basically just her telling herself, like, I can't eat, I need to be skinny, and all of that.
The second question is there a reason behind why anorexia is most present in girls? And Mrs. Masters explained how society plays a huge role in that. And so Cassie, who showed Leah how to lose weight and how that sort of was by throwing up or not eating, Cassie was taught that in theater camp by her friends because they wanted to be thin, they wanted to lose weight, and they thought that was the only way to.
As we said, the second question was, is there a reason why anorexia is most present in girls? And Mrs. Masters and Mrs. Ewing and Ella all talked about how, like, society kind of pushes girls to look a certain way and for their body to look a certain way and everything. And Ella also said that Cassie was the one that showed her how to throw up and basically was like, well, we need to be skinny. My theater friend said we need to be skinny. And page 146 and 147 was when Leah talked about the first time that Cassie puked, and that was when she was first introduced to ways to be skinny, like harmful ways to your body to be skinny. And in that moment when Leah's like flashing back, she didn't understand it, but now she clearly does because she starves herself every single day so she looks skinny.
The third question is, what do you notice about girls and boys that struggle with anorexia? This also relates to Leah because people who are anorexic have show some of the same signs as Leah did. So her grades started dropping. So does people who have anorexia in real life. And she didn't care about her grades. She wasn't going to classes, which people who are anorexic also do. So that's how this question relates to Leah.
As Ella said for question 3, Leah just kind of shows the same signs as a lot of people in our school do. In towards like the middle beginning part of the book, Leah skipped out on class and her grades were dropping and everyone was like, Leah, you need to come to class and everything. But she just wasn't feeling it because she wanted to avoid social situations and wasn't feeling good at all because 1, she wasn't eating, and 2, she felt that she was fat, so she wasn't feeling good about herself.
Not only is Leah hurting herself and her body, but she's also hurting the people who love her by exposing her sisters to something that she should have never seen. It's really taking a toll on her life and her family's.